This episode is brought to you by Trinity College London. Trinity works worldwide to support the music education of hundreds of thousands of students with assessments across a wide spectrum of styles, including classical, jazz, rock and pop, and theory of music. If you're looking for music exams that are super flexible, learner-centered, and come with plenty of local on-the-ground support, then Trinity College could be the perfect option for your international school setting. To help you get started, Trinity is giving away their bite-sized theory ebook to all MTIIS listeners. To get your free copy, usually valued at around £9 UK, head to resources.trinitycollege.com/MTIIS. Again, that's resources.trinitycollege.com/MTIIS. Welcome back to the Music Teachers in International Schools podcast. I'm your host, Chris Cormer, and in this podcast, we of course explore international schooling and music education. And today I'm speaking with Desta Olds. And Desta and I met at the Big Gig Japan in Kobe back in January 2024. And for those who aren't aware, the Big Gig is kind of a collaboration between MTIIS and Musical Futures International, bringing future-focused, practical, and international school-specific PD to music teachers working in the world's international schools. And in Japan, we had Dr. Jennifer Walden with us, and she explored world music pedagogy. And we had Anna Gower, who is the lead trainer for Musical Futures International. And it was a blast. And I think one of the reasons why it was such a blast was because of the sense of community created around the event. And I thought Desta was quite pivotal in this at Kobe. I remember as soon as Desta walked into the event, she had such a vibe and kind of drew people into conversations. And I was watching the community form and she was bubbling around, and it was really cool to watch. So I knew it would be fun to get her on the show to explore what makes her tick, as well as some of her key reflections on music teaching and international schooling and her journey. So Desta, thanks for joining me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun hanging out in Japan.
It was really cool. And we had some fun moments. Like I remember that night in Kobe where we went to the restaurant and ate tons of food and then like walked the streets and did some fun like late night shopping and stuff. It was cool.
And I went to karaoke.
Oh, you did? Yes. And you've been back to Japan recently, right?
Oh yeah, I went to Tokyo this time, and I actually met up with some people from the conference and was able to even see an elementary music concert.
Yes. So cool. Love that. Okay, so let's get things started with your context, which I haven't really mentioned yet. So you're working at the International School of Phnom Penh in Cambodia. So what's it like to work in Phnom Penh? And maybe tell us what's your favorite thing about the city?
So Phnom Penh is a developing third world country, and my school is one of the longest standing schools. I think the longest standing school in the country, more than 30 years. And so working at my school is great. It's really well established. We have a lot of support and a high student population with a range of nationalities represented. And what's cool is Phnom Penh itself is in this really rebuilding phase musically and arts in the arts world. So they're so excited of anyone who has like a special skill to give them places to perform. And I play the cello, so I've played in the symphony here. And I've played at gigs at hotels. And whenever there's some kind of like more classical opera or concert or even musicals, it seems like everybody in town shows up because everybody's just desiring this development and this excitement. And it's really cool to see how not only does everyone show up, but anyone who wants to be participating in it can join it. And so I actually went to an opera in town, and a lot of my friends are singing in the chorus.
Why is this, do you think? I mean, I know a little bit about the history of Cambodia, but probably not enough to speculate. But do you think there's any reason why there's this desire for the arts and music in such a way that you've described?
Yeah, I think after the genocide in the 70s, there's been a lot of NGOs working here from other countries, from the States and from Europe. And so there's a lot of foreign influence. And the middle class is a lot of these expat workers that have come in to help out the community. And so I think while even the tradition of Cambodia arts has kind of died out because of the genocide, they went for the most educated people. So as the Cambodian art scene is coming back at the side by side, so is the international art scene with all the foreigners who are here.
So just to get it straight, the Cambodian art scene, like you said, they went for the, what did you call it? The most educated part of society in that genocide, which is a horrible thing to think about, even that whole story. And I remember visiting Siem Reap, doing the touristy thing and hearing a bit about this. But is there a rejuvenation of the local art forms at the same pace as this international art form? Is it sort of like, are they both developing at the same speed? Or do you think there's kind of like this globalized world that's come in from this expatriate influence, from the international influence that's shifting the art scene in Cambodia?
I think it's definitely both, because the traditional ballet, the really slow Apsara dance, those organizations are growing, while there's also like Cambodian rappers and Cambodian pop singers also coming more to an international stage. So I think they're both starting to grow.
Cool. So how did you get to Cambodia? What was your journey? Maybe take us back to the beginning. What was your journey to international school teaching? And then how have you slowly worked your way to working in Cambodia?
Question. You don't hear the cat meowing, do you?
I don't, but I kind of wish I could.
Okay, he's outside. He's just meowing at me from the balcony.
So if you're listening to this, Desta just showed us the cat on the balcony that's just getting involved in the conversation by the looks of it.
Sorry, can you say your question again? Oh, yeah. How I got to this point?
And maybe start from the beginning if you like. How did you get into international school teaching and what's been your progression to where you are today?
I was a music teacher in the Seattle area in the US. And I just had a lot of student debt and a lot of debt in general, credit cards, car loans. And I always think it's funny because most of the international teachers I meet are doing it because they love travel and they love being other places. And I honestly just started in order to pay off all my debt. Because I met someone who said, oh, I live in India and I have a car and a driver and they pay for my house and they pay for the flights. And I thought, cool, sign me up. And it was very idyllic in the beginning. Of course, you have the apartment and they flew you out to a foreign country. But I started in South Korea, in Busan. And in Busan, not a lot of people speak English. And it was really shocking to try to do anything, even buy salt at the grocery store. Salt was not salt. And so it was really overwhelming to try to figure out how to live as a English speaker in a foreign country.
Yeah.
Which, I learned a lot of Korean when I was there.
And where did it go from there? So you stayed in Korea for a couple of years, was it?
Yeah, I think you just realize, well, why would I ever leave? I paid off all my loans. Now I can do my master's degree. So I moved to Hong Kong, did my whole master's degree online. And living in Hong Kong kind of fulfilled that need to be in a more English speaking place. But other challenges, like people who are foreigners have lived there for so long that it's hard to break into their community. And I learned a lot through that time of how do you find your community? How do you break into these communities that are kind of closed off? And then I just realized I enjoyed IB schools and what they stand for and how they operate. So that's what I looked for. And then I was a little bit scared to move to a developing country. And I talked to a friend who said, Desta, you are going to have the funds to do what you need to do because you'll be working at an international school. So it may be a developing country, but your life will probably be just as comfortable as you want it to be. And that really encouraged me. So I've really been enjoying my time in Cambodia, and I'm all signed on to be here for a 4th year. Doing my longest in an international school.
So you were, was it 2 years Korea, 2 years Hong Kong?
I did 3 in Hong Kong.
So I think you mentioned your favorite thing being the developing arts or music scene. Would that be what you'd say is keeping you there, or what has been the impetus for signing on for that 4th year?
I think it's twofold because it's always that balance of, are you happy at work and are you happy in your personal life? And my work here is so cool because we put on elementary musicals every year. And I've never done these full scale elementary musicals where you design a set. You have all the lighting cues and all the kids memorizing all the lines. And it's been really exciting, like picking out shows and doing that.
So cool. I can hear the cat now, by the way.
Now he's like right here. Sorry.
What shows have you done?
Last year we put on the Rocky Monster show, which we purchased online. And this year we took a show called Jazz and we made it more our own with some different songs, and we wrote a script. So it was called Jazz Pizzazz. So a little Teresa Jennings and a little bit of our own Cambodia flavor.
Sounds fun. All right, I'm going to hit you with one of my favorite questions, which I often reserve for the end, but I want to see how we go with this one early on. What do you think makes a good international school music teacher?
That's so good. Something you think that every school you'd work at, you'd teach exactly the same. And something I've realized is you can't, because you have to be relevant to what your students like and do and love and in their culture. So actually, I have changed my lessons, not even just each school, but even each year. I was just telling my colleagues, the 5th graders always sing a graduation song. And you pick a different song every year. But this year I thought I couldn't sell them on one song because the kids are kind of like, they're all into so many different kinds of music that I ended up making a mashup of songs.
Yeah, you did.
A little bit of different genres to appeal to all the different kids. And I think, like, when I taught in the States, I tried to, I'll never forget trying to teach a Spanish song. And the kids go, why do we need to learn a song in another language? Just being shocked at how kids in international schools just love it. Any language, any country, any culture, they're so excited. But if you can really target the ones you have in your class, like if you have Chinese students doing Chinese songs or Korean songs or K-pop or whatever it is, I think that's what makes international teachers good, is when they're developing relevant curriculum to their kids at that school that year. But maybe that's any teacher anywhere.
Yeah, but I think you've tied it nicely to the international school context. And if it does apply outside of that, great. But it does seem like a common thread, this idea of context and relevance and tailoring the experience to context and culture. So it's really nice to hear, and really nice to hear how that's tied in with your journey going through international schooling and realizing the changes you've made in maybe each country, or even, like you said, each year that you've taught.
Totally.
So you've mentioned elementary music and the musicals and a couple of things, but tell us a bit more about your music teaching role then. And what is your favorite thing that you do in your week?
That's an impossible question. I teach, I'm a performing arts teacher. This is the first time I've had that specific title. And that means I teach music, dance, and drama. And I think that every music teacher does these 3 things anyways, but I'm more intentional about doing, especially the drama unit, and doing it big and really helping kids learn the elements of drama. And what I've discovered is kids who are really terrible at learning an instrument, like learning recorder, reading sheet music, this kind of thing, they're often excellent at drama, and they love us reading a script and coming up with their own ideas for stories, and how it helps cater to some of those kids that maybe struggle in music or struggle with dancing, having that drama piece. And the shyest kids all of a sudden are incredible. I actually had a student just say, who's normally so quiet in my class, I said, is anyone gonna audition for our musical next year now that we've put on plays in our classroom? Is anyone gonna continue and audition for our musical? And this quietest kid raised his hand and said he was going to. I think for me, teaching drama has been the most fun, just because it just brings about things that I haven't seen in the kids in other units.
What about you as a music teacher, coming from, like you said, working in the Seattle area and then years in international schools now? How have you evolved? Is there anything more you would say about how you've changed your practice as a music educator over the years?
It's interesting because I'm a cello player. So I've always identified as an instrumentalist. And a lot of elementary music teachers are singers first or piano players, this kind of thing, but usually big choir people. And so when I started and they told me I had to do choir, it was hard. And I thought, why? I don't want to do this. I don't like choir people. And that is the biggest shift I've had. Now I love teaching choir. I have a 60 to 70 student choir. It's so fun. And I get it. The great thing about choir is you don't need money to buy an instrument. You don't need any experience, past skills. You just show up. And yeah, I for sure still have a heart for string playing, and I teach ukulele to my fifth graders. I absolutely love teaching ukulele and recorder, but it's just so valuable for kids to sing. So I'm constantly really pushing myself to continue to include singing in my classes, even when we're doing instrumental units, just because I know singing is honestly like the great equalizer. Everyone can do it, and yeah, there it is.
Have you come across any particular resources that have supported this venturing into singing? Any websites, any books, anything you can think of?
I had a boss suggest to me to take voice lessons, and I had never done that. And I didn't do a one-on-one voice lessons. I actually started watching YouTube videos from Cheryl Porter. And I don't know if you've heard of her. She's African American and she's larger than life, but she's also a classically trained opera singer. So she's always saying things to you like, oh, you go, baby, you're doing so great. But also her vocal technique training is really excellent, like really high techniques.
So is this you're watching and she's presenting to camera what you need to do, and it's like an interaction with her kind of idea?
It's basically you can purchase her course and then you sing along with the videos.
Okay.
So you never actually meet her, but I found just doing her exercises every day to be so helpful. And she's quite famous on TikTok, so now the kids all recognize me me ma moo moo, me me
Yes.
ma moo, me me ma moo moo. Yeah, that's Cheryl Porter.
Does she do clips where she's working with someone one-to-one and it's like chopping between the student and her and she's like leading them in the exercises? Is that one of her things?
Yeah.
And they're awesome.
Exactly.
The students are like doing these crazy runs and stuff.
Exactly. And the biggest thing I've learned from her is about vocal registers and head voice versus chest voice, which I'm sure the singers are like, obviously. But to be able to demonstrate that to your students is so valuable. And yeah, it's just really made a big difference for my singing. Because of course, if your singing is more comfortable and confident, then you can teach it better to your students.
So let's put this in the show notes. This is Cheryl Porter. Did I get the name correct?
Yeah, Cheryle.
Okay, we'll grab a link to that. Make sure it's in the show notes. So if anyone wants to explore that resource, that'll be great. All right, so you've mentioned Cambodia and you used words like developing country, third world country, and you can take this question where you like. So what has been the biggest challenge for you? You could take that in terms of your personal teaching journey. You could take it in terms of the country you're living in. Take it where you like. What's been your biggest challenge of your international school music teaching journey so far?
The biggest challenge in Cambodia is sourcing instruments and instrument repairs. And it's something you vastly take for granted when you live in the States or Korea or Hong Kong, and you can walk down the street to a luthier and ask them to rehair your bow, and it's no problem. Here, no one does that. And even buying a quality string instrument is not around. They all have some, but they often just have violins. So as a cellist, and then I get cello students, I'm constantly calling up my former cello students who have stopped playing. Oh, did you grow out of that cello? Can I pass it on to somebody else? And kind of wheeling and dealing the same cellos across people because they just don't have them here. And I ended up getting to know the string community here quite well through the symphony. And a woman was telling me she's trying to operate her own string dealership. And so she orders the instruments for me from China and then brings them. What's great about her is she'll bring me several so I can kind of pick and choose from them because sometimes they're not always the best quality. But just knowing those people, and there's another guy I met who gets them from Korea, his brother does repairs. So he's, oh, I'll let you know when my brother's in town so you can repair any of your instruments. These kind of things, it's so valuable at that point to know your people. And every time I go on a vacation, I was like, oh, I gotta buy new strings. Let me buy some strings while I'm home in the States, and this kind of thing. Sourcing supplies for string playing. Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, I can see why that would be a challenge. Let's talk about this a bit more. I'd like to explore this because you have this blog, which I did a little bit of a deep dive in. Just going to let you know. I sort of dug into it. I thought it was really cool. You have a blog on your current experience in Cambodia, but also in Korea and in Hong Kong. And it's fun. There's lots of great reflections and things there. So if it's okay, we'll leave some links to that in the show notes for people to check out if they want. But I did notice, and I remember chatting to you about this, that you have made an effort, a real effort to connect to the local community, just like you're saying with this challenge of finding strings and string instrument repairs and all that stuff. Why has that been important for you? And how has it impacted your music programs, having this, I guess, desire or interest in connecting to local community?
I was gonna kind of talk about it from like a personal standpoint first.
Great.
Because personally, like when I moved to Korea, I was in my late 20s and everyone I worked with was in their 40s somehow. And for me, I suddenly needed new friends. So that's when I started going to events more in the community to meet just people my own age. And I went to a lot of like English meetups in Korea. And so that was a really awesome way to get to know people. And I've discovered wherever you live is just finding your niche. So in Hong Kong, I went to an event called Beer and Hymns, where you drank beer and sang hymns from old school church days, and then met a bunch of like cool people who were into the same kind of things as me. That became my core group of friends. And here in Cambodia, there's so many fun events. There's like stand-up comedy, and this ukulele circle is one of my favorite things, where a bunch of adults just get together and play ukulele and sing the songs, all like 70s, 60s hits. And just having friends outside of work can be so valuable to give you that space and to something else to think about other than just work.
And how did you go about finding those different groups? Was it social media stuff? Was it connections through school?
Yeah, always use Facebook events. In every place I've been, you just scroll them. But I also think looking at posters around town, or in the like subway stations or in cafes that you like, looking at ads. Of course, I think the biggest thing is you have to go. You just have to go, even go by yourself.
Because that's the hard part, isn't it? Like, you can find all these events and you're like, the hard part is actually going and think, oh, that's a cool thing. But then you just don't go. And I think that's what I was saying in the intro about what I saw in Kobe, where you just like put yourself into a group and be like, hey, I'm Desta. And everyone was like, hey, is that like your approach? You just go and see what happens?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the only way to find out if you're going to like something. You have to try it. And I mean, how often are you going to find a friend that's going to want to try it with you? Like, that's just, to me, sometimes too much work. So I'll just go on my own. And often when you go back and tell your friends, then they'll want to join you. And that's cool too.
Have you had any good like smoke bomb moments where you've been like, okay, this is not for me, boom, and just disappeared?
I mean, I did kind of try a CrossFit gym, and that did not go well. Mainly because we were running outside in Cambodia, which is really hot and humid, like 36 degrees, 70% humidity, but never again.
You're like, this is not my niche.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Okay, so that's like on the personal side, and I think that's really helpful for some people to be thinking about this and to be listening to, I guess, your willingness to just go and do stuff. What about on how that's connected to impacts into the music program, this connection to community?
So the symphony I worked at was interested in, or the symphony I played in, wanted to start a youth symphony. And that was really great because we have a lot of string students at my school and other schools around town that never play with the other kids. They only ever play solo. And so by knowing these people, I had a venue and I hosted a youth symphony. Of course, it's tricky scheduling these kind of things, but it's great to start that. And now I've started a violin group at my own school. And with my connections to the people who can get the instruments for us, that's been really helpful. And I started teaching cello lessons. Yeah, and then just a great thing is when you're out there in the community learning new things, like at Ukulele Circle, I'm learning new music, new chords, and just building my skills as a ukulele player. Then I can go back to school and be like, oh, you guys can play these chords. They're not that hard. Or you can learn this song that I just learned.
And was that the same in, let's say, Hong Kong? Like, did you find similar ways to connect to the musical community and bring that into the school, or was it different?
It was different. In Hong Kong, they have a lot of incredible concerts to see. So you're seeing like a performance that's underwater. Each person has their own aquarium tank. And then you could tie that into a science music unit at school. You're using it in different ways. Yeah. Or there was students who performed in a local music festival in Hong Kong at Clockenflap. They took their own band there. So different kind of opportunities for connection.
Nice. So I think something that comes up on this podcast more than I expect is the impact of family, partners, relationships, and how that is such a big part of international schooling, and especially for those who leave their home country and move somewhere else, because we know international schools are full of people that have left a home country to move somewhere new, but plenty of people from the country where the international school is located. So it depends who you are, but it still comes up a lot. And I thought it would be interesting to explore your situation, because as I understand it, you're single. How has that been for you? And do you have any tips on like single life as just a general international school music teacher, or in terms of like music stuff and connecting into that in any way as a single person?
I think the hard thing about teaching abroad is a lot of people don't want to invest in friends because they're afraid they're going to move away. And which is true, people move away, but I believe that you should fully invest in people when they're here. So even if they're there in town with you for 2 or 3 months, it could be such an impactful friendship or relationship that you've had, and you might go visit them wherever you're living. So my first thing is when I'm meeting people is to just fully invest in that moment and who they are and seeing like, is it going to fit or not? And for me, I think, and a lot of international teachers, you start with your work friends. Whoever you've come in, all the new teachers, they're all friends with each other. But I think you have to also then give yourself permission to not stay friends with those people if you don't actually like them and you realize your values don't line up. And it was really tricky for me because I wanted to be friends with certain people at my workplace, but realizing maybe it wasn't a healthy choice for me. How they did their life wasn't how I wanted to do mine. And not giving up on that dream of finding your people, because every year more people are coming in. And yeah, you just have to find your own family. And I think as a single person, finding other single ladies who you can be like, oh, if you need to go to the hospital, call me. I'll come with you. And then they'd say, oh, same for me, same for me. And having those check people, that makes a huge difference. It's that concept of chosen family. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And even if it's not other singles, people are always adopting you into their fold, you could say. And I think there's a lot of couples whose kids grow up and they are so nurturing and you can join in their family. But just fully investing and not giving up on finding your people. Because they're out there. There are people that you will connect with and really like, yes. Whether or not you like marry them later, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I love that. That's really nice to hear. And it's pretty special then when, if you've taken the time to invest, although it can be hard when there's that constant movement, you then rock up, a couple of years later, right, in XYZ country, and you're like, hey, there you are again. And you've got that beautiful connection. Is that what you found?
Oh, yeah. So this summer I'm going to Europe. And I'm going to 6 different countries, and I have friends in 4 of them who have agreed to host me. And that's incredible. And it's funny because some of those people I weren't that close with when we were in the same place. But suddenly you just stayed in touch, and they're so hyped to have you come visit because not everyone's doing that, going around and visiting people. And yeah, it's just an incredible thing to build all these connections all around the world. Because then, yeah, like you said, people move, and that's a good thing. Then you have a place to go.
Yeah, and I think most of the listeners I would assume, would agree with this, this feeling of this global family, especially the longer you're in it, right? You have this chosen family, I think were the words you used, all around the place, and it's really beautiful. I was actually going to ask, because at the time of this recording, where we're in June, we're in the depths of the academic year in the Northern Hemisphere. So summer, you must be looking forward to it. And maybe you can where are you going to go? 6 countries, you said, in Europe?
Yeah, I have a funny goal. You remember, I didn't sign up to do this traveling thing. So sometimes I have to trick myself into having a good reason to travel.
Okay, hang on. I want to explore this a minute, because you did say that. What do you mean? Like, you don't like traveling necessarily, or?
I mean, I do and I don't, but I love being home. The States is, to me, awesome. The States is the States. I love being with my family and my friends, and like, I don't have to go places, but then I find reasons to go places. So I've been to all the Disneylands, and I like to visit just any amusement parks. I try to stop going to wax museums because I've been to too many of those. But so my latest reason to travel is to get to the same number of countries as my age.
Oh, so how much detail are you going to tell us here? How many countries is that? Or do you not want to say?
I need 6 more countries.
Okay,
so
well
I knew that meant I have to go to Europe to do that. But of course, I've been to all the major countries in Europe: England, Germany, France. So I had to do some kind of roundabout traveling to get to ones I haven't been to.
Okay. Where are you going to go? Just give us an idea. What are the 6?
Yeah. So I'll start in Stockholm in Sweden, where I know a professional singer. So I'll get to go to free shows. And then I'll go to a music festival over in Finland, down to Belgium, Luxembourg for a night, up to Prague, and finish in Austria, in Salzburg. Sound of Music tour.
Very nice. And some of those places are great fun. Luxembourg is a cool country, city. It's everything in one, right? But I was there in November last year. It was really fun to see. That sounds fun. What a good trip. Maybe we're winding to a close here. I've really enjoyed this. We've touched on a whole bunch of cool things, and let's see where these final couple of questions go. You said you've signed on for another year. So 24, 25. What are you looking forward to? What's going to happen in 24, 25 for you?
Well, I'm looking to build our string and woodwind program. So encouraging more students to audition for AMI groups, like the honor orchestras and honor bands, and participate in solo ensemble. I think my school especially gets a lot of students who learn their instruments at another school. And then they come to Phnom Penh, where there's a lot less of that happening. But they can keep playing if they have an inspiration. So that's a big goal for me. And of course, doing another elementary musical. I love seeing these kids on stage and all the technical challenges of set design and light design. It's really fun to me.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say that we might not have covered? Is there any comments, thoughts, questions, requests of the audience? Anything at all?
I think if you see something at your town or your school and either you're not sure about it or you wish something existed, just ask questions and figure out how to either start something or figure out why you should join something. Because I think with determination, great things can happen, and you'd be surprised at how good some events can be if you just go give them a try.
Love that. Well, Desta, thank you so much for the time. I know it's a really busy time of year. Before we recorded, you said you'd, 8 events in like the last little bit?
Yeah, last 2 weeks.
Well done. So all the best with finishing off the year, and have an amazing summer. And just before we wrap up, I guess, if anyone wanted to get in touch with you and ask any questions or follow up on anything, is there a best platform to do that?
Yeah, you can shoot me an email.
Great. We'll do that. Put it in the show notes. Thanks so much for the time, and all the best, and enjoy that amazing summer trip.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Music Teachers in International Schools podcast. Listen to other episodes by visiting MTIIS.com or learn more about our community on Facebook by simply searching for Music Teachers in International Schools. If you know someone who you think I should get on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. You can find me at chriskoelma.com, ChrisKoelma.com.
See you next time.